So let me first ask Mr. Doppelberger from Fraunhofer institution to give us his presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Martin, for the warm welcome and the introduction. Yes, my name is Thomas Doppelberger. I'm the head of Fraunhofer Venture, and I want to bring you or give you some information concerning the, let's say, spin-off activities in the surrounding of our institutes. And let's start maybe with the question, whom of you has already had contact with Fraunhofer or heard about Fraunhofer? So the one or the other. And have you had any detailed contact with one of our institutes? Okay, some. And have you heard about the activities of Fraunhofer Venture? Okay, here, 1, 2. So this is the reason why I'm here, and this is the reason why I want to give you some further information how Fraunhofer is, let's say, a very strong partner for the industry in Germany and in Europe. But also we have established in the last 20 years an ecosystem how we support our scientists if they want to go the way down the street in order to ramp up their own startup company. And responsible for these activities is Fraunhofer Venture, me and my team, and what we are doing on detail, I will give you some information in the, let's say, next hour. And if you have any questions during my presentation, please feel free to interrupt me all the time, so maybe we can establish a little exchange here. Yes. First of all, some information about Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, the Fraunhofer Research Organization at all. So I have to. Oh. I switch or you? Okay. So, yes, it works. Yes, first of all, the name Fraunhofer is a surname in Bavaria, and Josef of Fraunhofer lived in the 18th century in Munich, and he was a researcher, inventor, and an entrepreneur. And this is what we are expecting as well from our scientists. He researched, or his research work was on the solar sun spectrum, and he discovered the black lines, as they named Fraunhofer lines in the sun spectrum. He was also an inventor. He invented new methods for lens processing, and he was producing such telescopes as you see here on the right side of the screen. And this telescope is in the Deutschen Museum in Munich, and there are some more still existing. One is in the entrance hall of the Fraunhofer building in Munich, and he was also an entrepreneur. He was the director and partner in a glassworks near Munich. He was producing glass, and director and partner, he was producing himself, he and 2 colleagues. But what's interesting from my perspective, responsible for spin-off activities, there was also a venture capitalist and a business angel who financed him. It was the King of Bavaria, because it was a royal glass hut, and one of the inhabitants of the big breweries in Munich gave him money to produce glasses, and let's say this was the business angel. Yes, he lived in the 18th century, and to produce glass was not very healthy in this time, so he died very young. And then, let's say, the story of Josef von Fraunhofer was over. And after World War II, there was the initiative to establish a research organization as a partner for the young and upcoming industry in Germany, and there was a decision made in Munich to have a research organization beside Max Planck, who is responsible for the basic research for advanced research activities as a partner for small and medium enterprises, but also for the big industry. And in 1949 there was established Fraunhofer in Munich, and as an organization, and then they were looking what name should have this organization, and then they were looking in the history in Bavaria, of course, because we were established in Munich, and they said, okay, Fraunhofer, a famous researcher, inventor, and entrepreneur, let's give the name Fraunhofer to this organization. In the meanwhile, yes, as well here, okay, to the other round, okay, so yes. In the meanwhile, more than 70 years, Fraunhofer established very well. We have 76 research institutes all over Germany. We have staff around about 30,000 people working for Fraunhofer, and we have a research budget around about 3 billion euro. The details, how we were financed, I will go over it, but it's important, and this is a specialty, and we call it the Fraunhofer mechanism, that we receive, let's say, 1/3 of our budget from the government as a basic funding, and the rest has to be acquired by our institutes as projects from the public side, but especially from the industry side. This is the Fraunhofer model, how we have organized 76 business units. They were independently from a finance perspective, but they were legal depending to the headquarters in Munich. Yes, and what we do in the technology transfer, we are not only doing spin-offs, we have other activities. On the one side, our public revenues, 1 billion euro, we were receiving from basic funding, but also from public funded research projects from the German government, from the European Commission, and from other governmental organizations. The revenues we are receiving from the economy, from our industry partners, that's the core target of Fraunhofer Institutes, 728 million euro in the last year, and there was an upscale of 11% if you compare it to the figures of 2020, and we are very proud that we have reached our goal, especially in the very challenging times we have had in the last 2 years. We have international revenues, 290 million euros we were receiving from projects from partners. They were not coming out of Germany. We have had 515 patent registrations in the last year. We have established 30 spin-offs, and this is what I'm responsible for, and I will give you further details how we do it. Then transfer in mind, guys, they're researchers, they were leaving the Fraunhofer Institute. That's happening at the surrounding of our institutes or in our institute. The guys, they were working in research projects, they have limited labor contracts, and after their project work they were leaving the Fraunhofer Institutes, and this is what we say brain drain, transfer through minds, and we have a fluctuation rate of 9%. Approximately 1,000 scientists were leaving Fraunhofer each year, and we have strong, let's say, it's not so easy for us to identify young researcher students. They want to go to Fraunhofer and start a scientific career here, so it's a big challenge for us to identify the scientists for the next years or for the future. And we have an in-house Fraunhofer Academy where we make education programs for external partners, and you see there are 4,080 participants we have had in the last year. I only want to give you the information here on this slide because spin-off activities is one way to make technology transfer at Fraunhofer. There are many others, and the biggest one, of course, is our contract research we are doing together with partners out of the public side or from the industry side, but I will focus in the next slides and in my presentation how we support spin-offs at Fraunhofer, at Fraunhofer Venture. Yes, why is Fraunhofer doing this, or what's the mission of Fraunhofer Venture to handle with startups? The most important one, of course, is that we want to activate and maximize the transfer activities. It's a new one, 20 years we are dealing in this environment, but in the science community, it's more or less the most challenging way to bring technology into the market, because you don't only need intellectual property, you need a founding team, scientists are leaving, and you need a business model, and last but not least, of course, you need maybe external financing. But we are also focusing on this way because our spin-offs are our partners for the future. Our new high-tech startups we are spinning out of our companies are the partners of our institutes, maybe in the next years. And we are doing this not alone. We're establishing collaborative networks. We are doing this together with partners here sitting on the right-hand side, but also maybe partners from your side, and especially activities they are in the regions in Germany where our institutes are located, and we're bringing such ideas, programs together. That institute that is located in Berlin, we are located in Munich, that we say, okay, of course there's a frame and we can assist you, but there's also a strong spin-off support community ecosystem in Berlin, and we bring them together with them. We are focusing on the contribution to impact and sustainability, as many investors are doing as well in the last years. We are promoting the entrepreneurial spirit and startup culture in our institute, that we go to the institute and identify not only projects which are suitable for spinning out a company or thinking about spinning out a company. We are also motivate our scientists, our employees to think about if this can be the next step in their career. Staying at Fraunhofer is the one side, leaving Fraunhofer, as I've shown you before, and go to industry partner. That's a very common way, as I have shown you, but also motivate the young scientists to say Fraunhofer is supporting if you are thinking out spinning out a company with the research results you have elaborate in your work at the institutes. And it's a very political issue, the increasing number of spin-offs. We were, let's say, more or less forced from the government to raise the number of startups, and I think that nearly not each week, but each month, our Ministry for Research and Education asks Fraunhofer, how is the number of spin-off, and is there a hockey stick in the development? So, yes, if we have identified such startup ideas at our institutes, then we as Fraunhofer were focusing on several criteria, let's say, but that the definition, what we understand under a spin-off out of our institutes is written down here: companies whose business is primarily based on expertise, know-how and or intellectual property that was developed at Fraunhofer. And this is very important from our perspective, because we are focusing on technology transfer based on IP which was developed in our institutes, and all the surrounding, who is financing the program, the project, who is the founding team, are there scientists and there are additional guys from the outside, or in some cases only guys from the outside. They were bringing Fraunhofer technology into a market by founding a new company. That's not the main important issue. The main important issue is we want to bring Fraunhofer IP into the market. Yes, and then we were focusing on the founding team, as I have mentioned. Is it internal or external, or a mix of both? We focus on transfer, and the ratio is from knowledge until patent families. financing, who will finance such business models. Are they self-financed because they have revenues from the first day, and Fraunhofer institutes are working very close to industry partners, so that often we have the situation that they already start with products which were developed inside of our institutes. And in other projects, of course, we need venture capital, business angel, or Fraunhofer, and this I will show you later on, is also able to spend own money in a very small amount into own startup companies. Yes, then a very important issue for us, is there a product? We need, the basis of startup is not research and patents, the basis is products. They have to sell services or products into the market. Then how is the scalability of the service or the product? And then the goal is to bring all the issues together, the issues of Fraunhofer, of the founding team, of the external stakeholders, and so on. And we want to match all the interests in order to ramp up high profitable startup companies. And the picture which is shown here is a picture out of our boot camp, and we are doing this 3 times a year and bringing together all the interested guys out of our institutes in order to bring them closer to the thinking how which issues they have to think about in order to go the next steps by spinning out their own company. Yes, this is only an overview, and then I will make a little bit deep dive into the one or the other point here. We are the partners from the beginning on, from the scouting of the ideas at the institutes. We go to the institutes, and of course we are located in the headquarters in Munich, and all the information out of the 76 institutes are coming together here in Munich. All the inventions that were made, all the projects, all the internal programs where Fraunhofer itself is spending money into research and is divided into in the community of the Fraunhofer institutes. And out of this information we make a scouting and sourcing process, and we identify more or less in this institute, in this technology field, there was invested a huge amount of money out of Fraunhofer, and maybe we should go in a discussion with the research team how and in which way they are thinking to commercialize the result, if it then will be there in the near future, hopefully. And the spin-off support, this is all what Fraunhofer Venture is doing, and I will give you further details later on. We have our CoLab. Our CoLab is a program where we have set up a program how Fraunhofer can work together with external startups, which have been founded in the economy outside of Fraunhofer and maybe have research need, or Fraunhofer has a IP which is interesting for external startup companies, but maybe have not the possibility to pay for it. And there we have set up a program how we can bring external startups and our institute together. We are also responsible for the preparation of for investments. If Fraunhofer or we go to the board of directors and say, this is such an interesting business model based on Fraunhofer IP, and we would suggest to become a shareholder in this startup company. And if the goal is of course the founding of the startup company here, but in some cases we also become a shareholder, and if we act so, then we do also the whole investment management. And of course we have a close network to the pre-seed and seed financing ecosystem, venture capitalists, business angels all over Germany, in order to bring them together with our spin-offs for first pre-seed and seed financing rounds. So what are we doing in detail? We are the central point of contact, and let's say we are responsible for all the issues which are, and I don't give you all the information written down on the slides. I think you have further on the possibility to get these slides. We are, let's say, the central point of contact as a tandem, as it is written down. We have, my team, there are 50% investment managers with business administration background and also some lawyers, in order to do all and assist our founding teams at the Institute in all necessary issues in the surrounding of spinning out a company. Is there a business model? Assist them to write down the business plan, the financial plan, the access to the IP, which can be very complicated, a licensing agreement, which IP do they need for their business model, do they need any access to infrastructure of Fraunhofer, laboratory space, clean room capacity, machineries and so on. This is one very strong issue, of course. How do they leave the Fraunhofer Institute from a personal perspective? All the labor issues, of course, can they stay 12 months, or in many cases, the founding time and the time when they were leaving is in a range of 12 up to 24 months, and after that they have to leave the Fraunhofer Institute. This is a very important issue, and also a very important issue: who is the shareholder of such startup companies from a compliance perspective. Those who were leaving the Fraunhofer Institute, it's clear they should have, and it's a very important issue from the investors, that they have shares. But is it also possible for colleagues from our institutes, they stay at the Fraunhofer Institute, to have some amount of shares in such a spin-off company, and who maybe will be the partner from a finance perspective for the future? That's also the issue. What we are responsible, and we are supporting, consulting the startup teams out of our institutes. And what we are doing in detail, and focusing not only to the research, more to the team, to the business model, and to the product, to the market strategy and so on. This is where we bring an add-on to the teams as a tandem existing from established in my team. Yes, the investment preparation. I have to click twice, so sorry for getting the one or the other click. Yes, the investment preparation, that's necessary only by this spin-off activities or spin-offs where Fraunhofer is thinking about to become a shareholder, and then of course we prepare all the necessary information and documents for our board of directors. But at the end, because at the end of the day, our board of directors, our executive board makes the decision if they say, okay, we follow your suggestion as Fraunhofer Venture to become a shareholder here in this single startup company. And if we do so, then we do also the whole investment management. We are responsible for the single shareholdings from starting it, go to the notary and sign all the necessary contracts to establish the company, but also all the necessary contracts between Fraunhofer and this single startup company, and also to negotiate shareholders' agreements with external partners. And this is a very important, let's say, consultancy, what we can do for our spin-off, because we have done financing rounds and negotiating financing contracts several times, and for the single spin-off team, it's maybe the first and the only one, and it's and so we are partners for the spin-off in order to, the ones I identified as suitable external investor, but also to negotiate the contracts in this stage or in the several financing rounds. And of course, if there are financing rounds, we are also thinking about to act as a co-investor and spend own money in order not to be diluted and to defend our shares during the several financing rounds. And at the end of the day, hopefully, there is a positive development of the spin-offs. We also thinking and working together with the startup team, where are the next steps, and maybe where can be an exit, where are the, let's say, bigger partners from an industry side, where we can make a M&A transaction to sell the whole company to a bigger one, or go to the stock market. But there we have had only one experience in the history, that we brought one of our portfolio companies to the stock market and made an IPO. I think there's more experience at the side of Max Planck here in this issue. Yes, then I want to give you information about our internal transfer program, technology transfer program ahead. I said before that we are organizing 3 times a year our boot camp. This is 4 days, and we bring all the interested guys, researchers from our institutes together and make a stress test for the team and the whole projects, especially in the field of team, product, and let's say technology transfer strategy. And we started this program in 2019, and then we have done 3 times real meetings with the guys in the boot camp, and then we switched to a remote mode because of the pandemic we have had the last 2 years. And this was not so easy for us, because at the beginning of the AHEAD program we have had more than 100 guys out of our institutes. They were coming to Munich and make the challenge to be a part of the boot camp. Some of them say, okay, that's the best I have ever heard, and it is a very important experience for me. But we have also had guys, scientists from our institute, they said, that's not my world, and they left the boot camp after 2 days or 1 day, and that's absolutely okay. And if they come to the conclusion, yes, this is the right way for me, for my project, for my team, then we have the possibility to give them, let's say, internal money, as it's here written down, phase 1, phase 2. It's not so important how it is organized and how much money they get, and they don't get any personal money. They get project money from out of this program, from the headquarters to the institute, and the motivation for this project money is that they have free time, free free time and free and the possibility to do all the necessary preparing work for their spin-off activity, to are in a close exchange with the colleagues of my team to sit down and write on their business model, elaborate the financing data, and do all the necessary work for preparing what's next and what's important for ramp up the startup company. And this is why we have established this program, that the teams at the institutes don't have the argument to say, okay, guys from Fraunhofer Venture spinning out the company, of course that's my main issue and my personal career perspective, but I have to work in several research projects and I have at all not the time to focus on this issue. So this exclusion they don't have, because here with this project they have the time to work on preparing the startup company, and especially also to work together with us, to come to Munich, to make the necessary meetings, as we call check-ins. They have to come once a week for 2 days to Munich, and the history, of course, in a remote mode, and are in a close exchange with the colleagues of my team. Yes, this is our transfer program ahead. And let's say it's more or less the basis of 75% of all the spin-off projects, ideas we were identifying at our institutes. We motivate, we support them in order to be part of this program. But you also see there are some projects, some spin-off activities of institutes which are not part of this program. It's not a must to be part here. You also can come to us and say, okay, here's the business plan, here are the partners, and this is what we are planning, and then we support such projects out of our institutes, of course, as well. This is a motivation, this is a program in order to speed up the whole process, but we also have institutes, they don't need this, they have a small internal incubator and they don't use it, but the most ideas we were identifying out of our institutes, they are part of this AHEAD program. Yes, as I've mentioned before, this is what we are doing in the pre-seed, in the identification phase. Identify, scout, Fraunhofer technology, do all the work from a business and a legal perspective in order to prepare them to spin out their companies, and the basis can be the AHEAD program to give them free time, free money. And if we want to be a strong partner for the future, then we decide to become a shareholder. And why we are doing this and when we are doing this and what's the reason for acting so, it's written down here in this slide. When we want to become a shareholder, then we are always a co-founder. We are the partner from the first stage. We go with the founders to the notary and take shares. The mission is technology transfer, to bring new products to the market, to foster deep tech spin-offs, and we are always a minority shareholder. And the basis motivation to act as a shareholder, to act as a co-founder is that we see, of course, a big impact with this technology. Or Fraunhofer has spent a huge amount of internal money in order to elaborate the IP. And further on, that we see that Fraunhofer will be a very important development and innovation partner for this single startup in the future. This is the more or less basis. If we, and of course all the business criteria must also be positive, as I've mentioned before, and especially, is there a possibility when we are a partner for a limited time period, and if you are a co-founder, you are only a partner for a limited time period. Is there a possibility for an exit to sell our shares in the future? And if this is so, then we go to the board of our directors and give them a suggestion to take shares. And I don't know if you have remembered the slide I've shown you at the beginning. We have made 30 startups in the last year, and we took shares in 3 of them. It's only a very small part. We also have our internal FFM program, Fraunhofer Funds Management. Here we have the possibility to spend Fraunhofer money to the startup company in order to complete the management team. Because this is in many cases, this spin-off ideas is the reason that it's based only on scientists. They were leaving the Fraunhofer Institute, and we say, okay, it would be a good step to achieve external investors if you can complete the management team. We have had in the history a program with the Technological University in Munich. They have in one field, they have had or they are running a program for students manage and more, and we brought those students together with our scientists from the institute in order to complete such management team. And out of this FFM program, we have the possibility as an equity investment to the startup company to give them 100,000 euro and say, okay, but this money is supposed to hire or to pay one external guy in a phase where the startup companies are just founded and don't have internal money to hire external guys. And if you are once a shareholder, then if there's a financing round, we look on the details, and in normal cases we do equity co-investments. We always need an external lead investor. We are a non-for-profit organization, so we are a research organization, not a venture capitalist, but in order not to be diluted during the several financing rounds, we are able to spend money in the startup companies in order not to be diluted. This is, let's say, the package. When we decide to become a shareholder, then we make the decision from the beginning on. We go to the board, we say, okay, these are the reasons, these are the criteria for the technology transfer, for the license agreement, and one part is to be a co-founder. Then they have the possibility to have access to the FFM program, and then we have a lump sum in our preparation for the board, and we say, okay, and up to, let's say, 500,000 euro, we can act in this single spin-off project as a co-investor. And this is, at the one side, not that much money, but at the other side, it's a very important and a very crucial issue to the financing partners. If you say, if you make the lead investment, we as Fraunhofer, where the technology comes from, where the technology was developed, we also are willing to take money on the table in order to do the first or the second financing round. Yes, financing is a very important issue, and we are able at the one or the other stage internal with our head program, with our surrounding in the shareholding at all, but we also have a very close network to all, let's say, pre-seed and seed financing initiatives all over Germany or Europe. And we have an internal small fund, our FTTF, Fraunhofer Technology Transfer Fund, where we have established a fund together with the European Investment Fund 3 years ago, and the guys, former guys from out of my team, they are supposed only to, or they're forced only to invest in Fraunhofer spin-offs, in those where Fraunhofer maybe is not an investor or is not a shareholder, but there's also the possibility that we act together. And then, last but not least, it was mentioned today in the morning in the discussion, the high-tech Gründerfonds is the biggest and most famous fund for high-tech spin-offs in Germany, and we have a very close cooperation. And to underline this cooperation, we are not only a partner, we are also a very small investor in this fund. And they were just on fundraising for their fourth fund, and we also made the decision, because we see this cooperation very fruitful, to be also an investor in the next fund, in the Fund 4 of the High-Tech Gründerfonds. Yes, so this is what we are doing in the surrounding in order to elaborate on these figures. As you see here, the columns of our spin-off activities of the last 5 years, and we are not making hundreds of spin-offs. We have made 30 in the last year, 2 each month, or 2.5 each month. You see also that we have done 3 new investments as Fraunhofer Gesellschaft invested, and when we are investing, then we are doing this with power. And we have also done 4 exits in the last year. And here you see a small overview about the spin-offs. I think if I look on the logos, the most of them only are spin-offs out of the years 2020 and 21, but small local spin-offs, I think you don't know or have seen any of them. Yes, in the next slide, and the reason why I want to show you this slide is, and I don't know if you can read it in detail, is that we always are in a very critical discussion with the government. Is the number of spinning out companies the right number? I often have heard from the ministry in Berlin the question, is 30 spin-off companies per year out of Fraunhofer the right number, or is the right number 70 each year, one spin-off company out of Fraunhofer Institute? And then we have made with 2 organizations a survey in the last years, and we have brought together the average number of spin-off per 1,000 employees from different organizations. At the right side you see Caltech, California universities, you see the MIT, you see the TNO, Stanford University, and here you can see that what we are doing is not so bad. And if you are considering that technology transfer via spin-off is only one way to bring technology into the market, it's a very interesting side, and this is the answer when I was asked which is the right number. Then we say, okay, from an international perspective, we have a mix of technology transfer activities, and the situation why and where we are spinning out companies is from an international perspective competitive. What I'm seeing now is that we have some challenges for the future. We have spin-offs in our portfolio. They have big problems concerning getting staff. They have also big problems to get products. We have one startup, they producing proteins out of sunbloom, and they don't get any products out of the Ukraine anymore. They cannot produce anymore. So also this crisis is in the daily business of German startup companies in the meanwhile. And what I see as well is that in a very well-doing industry as it is doing in Germany right now, it's very hard to motivate scientists not leaving our institutes to go to the industry where they were paid doubled, as they are done in Fraunhofer, and go to a very hard time period to ramp up their own startup company. This is what I, from my perspective, seeing now, and we were working very hard in order to, and now I go one slide back, to achieve those number of spin-offs in this or in the next years. And I have big concerns that this will be a very big challenge for Fraunhofer, and maybe all the technology transfer or all the spin-off activities in the next years. Yes, here only some examples. How is the time? Okay, so only 3 slides, I think. Only to give you some examples what Fraunhofer is spinning out, and what I have told you in the last half an hour, and what you can imagine what's behind all those things we are doing. On the left side you see Evita. It was founded in 2021. He gets in our annual assembly last week the Fraunhofer Founding Prize out of our institute FEP in Dresden, and they do electron treatment of seeds. Seeds for farming are treated with chemical at present, and they do this with electron treatments. This is very important for all biofarming. Ampere's Energy, we have founded this in 2019. One of the shareholders is the biggest company for public flats in Austria in the meanwhile, and they make cloud-based energy management systems. How you can bring energy from the roofs, from the wires to the single flats, and also how this can be a part of the inhabitants of the flats at all. The Sandblom Proteins GmbH, I've mentioned before. This is the company we have founded in 2017. We have 2 big business angels in this company. There are family offices of big companies and family companies in Germany. They are acting in this environment. Ehrmann and Centis, the one or the other maybe know these companies. They're making yogurt or marmalade. And the inside of this company is functional and neutral proteins from sunflower. So we don't receive any sunflower seeds anymore, so we have big problems, and the production line is standing in, next to Munich, and there is no work anymore at present, but we hopefully we are negotiating with other partners in order to bring this production to run again in the near future. Yes, here NextWave, Arioso and Voltarion, these are 3 companies where we also are shareholders of Fraunhofer. NextWave, we have established a company in the surrounding of Dresden, and they were producing high efficiency silicon wafers for photovoltaic cells. This is more or less the answer to say the photovoltaic scene or environment is also already are still existing here in Germany. We are just building up this production line. Then Arioso Systems, they make micro loudspeaker technology for hearables. We just sold this company to Bosch in the last 2 weeks, and also it's an important issue for us that exit companies are willing to buy small and medium enterprises. Spin-offs not only are coming from the US or from Asia, they also can come from Europe. And Voltarion is also a startup company, and they were producing a redox flow battery technology. I will only give you those examples, then you can see how diverse are the technologies out of the different Fraunhofer institutes in order to be commercialized by spinning out a company. And here in the last two examples, Arioso and Voltarion, you also can see that from the time of the foundation of the company, 2019 or 2016, to the exit, where we have sold our shares, but exit in those ecosystem means the whole company was sold to a bigger one, was only 3 years. And in the meanwhile, we have established a company, we completed the founding team, and we have made in both examples 2 financing rounds, and then we sold both companies to bigger ones, Arioso to Bosch. This is the one I am allowed to name. I'm not allowed to say anything about figures. And Voltarion is also, was also sold to a big European company. So, and this is the end of my presentation, or this was the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and hopefully there are many questions open for the next minutes.
Thomas, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was really very interesting. For me, I have to say that as the head of the Technology Transfer Office in the Academy of Sciences, everything is quite relevant. We are discussing, dealing, we're doing some of the things, but it was very inspirational. Maybe before I pass it on to open it for questions, I will highlight a few things. For me, and this is probably the theme that you will hear throughout the presentations, because I've seen the other slides as well, you're covering it from the idea phase all the way to the exit, which is, I think, very important. That's something that I really highlight. What was interesting to hear from me is that, you have access to all the research results that is generated within the Fraunhofer. So that's, I think, also I really see as very important that you can yourself identify the potential, and we definitely want to focus on that. And then probably the last thing, it was interesting to hear about the spin-offs and the proactive approach for Fraunhofer to evaluate where you want to become also shareholder, and then that if that decision is made, that you are actually the central point of, and you're basically managing the process of investing, which was very interesting for me to hear that this is what you do. Yeah.
Yes, what's more or less a single point of contact, so Fraunhofer Venture for all the shareholdings. I think if you go this way to become a shareholder, to act as a shareholder, then you need a critical mass of numbers of companies. If the management team of Fraunhofer, our president, Professor Neugebauer, if they come back to me and say, okay, what's the impact of Fraunhofer Venture? And then, of course, we can say we have now at present around about 70 companies where we are shareholders, and then we made here an exit, but the one or the other company is not developing as well. Then I think it only makes sense to think about earning money out of this way shareholding. Then you need a critical mass, as all venture capital funds have several number of investments, and the one or the other is developing very well, and the one or the other is living dead, and there is no exit at all at the end of the day. And what Martin, you have meant, of course, we are located in the headquarters in Munich, where all the information and our new ERP program, SIP, should deliver the one or the other information, hopefully in the necessary detail in the future. But nevertheless, we are in a very close exchange with the single institutes, because the directors of our institutes, they are responsible for the performance of their single institutes, for the business units, and the internal negotiation, how they are willing to bring and to give the technology to the single spin-off is more or less the same hard job as to negotiate with external partners. Because the key performance indicator for Fraunhofer institutes is the amount of revenues they are doing with industry partners. And it's not the number of spinning out startup companies. My motivation is always to go to the directors of the institute and say, okay, but the spin-offs are the industry partners for the future. And the one or the other follows my argumentation, or the other says, okay, that's not so important for me because I'm retiring in the next years. And this is more or less, the problem is in Germany, all industry companies, but also Fraunhofer, we are thinking in balance sheets on an annual basis. And they say, okay, at the end of this year, I need this amount of research projects together with the industry, and you need to think in a middle-term perspective in order where are more or less those companies, they have innovation need in 2, 3, 4 years, and where do they come from? And what's interesting are two figures. The one side, the licensing income we have from our spin-offs, then we can see that our spin-offs are selling products at the market because our licensing conditions are always revenue-based. And the other side is the amount of research volume projects our institutes are doing with our spin-offs. So there you can see that our spin-offs have free money at the one side because they have revenues, or the other side that the investors gave them the money and they see innovation need and go back to the institute and say, let's do research work together. And this is a very important issue for Fraunhofer, that we say, hopefully we are on the right track, spinning out startup companies and support the, let's say, ecosystem of high-tech companies in Germany and in Europe.
Okay, thank you.
I have one comment and one question. The comment is that your figure about the best spin-off founders seems to be incomplete, because our Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry would have a factor of 1.3, and this is missing in your figure. The question is, our academy has actually problems with the legal status and with the possibilities how to finance and how to accumulate money for the transfer of the technology and knowledge. I suppose that the general legal conditions are very similar in Germany, because we are both in the European community. Does it mean that you have no problems to transfer money to spin-offs, from spin-offs back to the institutes? You can distribute the money from one spin-off, which was actually based on results of one institute, to the other institutes, and so on?
Let's say, to bring the money back from the spin-offs to the Fraunhofer institutes, that's not the problem, because that's basic contractual corporate industry projects we are doing with BMW or Siemens and so on. We doing together research projects with industry partner, and if the industry partner is one of the big ones or a small one, that's not so important for Fraunhofer institutes. That's the easiest way to bring money or to do together industry projects with spin-offs we have established in the last year. But the other one, to act as an investor, that's of course not so easy, but it's legal what we are doing. At the one side, you have to consider, as we act as a shareholder from co-investor, as I've shown on the left side, we go together with the founders to the notary, and we and nobody is bringing anything. We are paying those 25,000 euros money, which is necessary to ramp up a GmbH, a limited company in Germany, and we act as the scientists do. We are co-founders. We act as a founder. And if then we bring in additional money, then it must be dealing on arm's length, and this is why we always only can act as a co-investor. There must be a lead investor who have made the evaluation of the company, and then we say if there is the high-tech Gründerfonds or something else, a corporate venture company arm of investing in a startup company, they say, okay, the evaluation of the company is 3 million and we spend 1 million and therefore we want to have 30% of the company. Then we say, okay, we are a shareholder with 25% and we don't want to be diluted, and then we are able to spend so much money as a co-investor that our shares are stuck at 25%. This is the mechanism how we are allowed to, if in Germany, the so-called Abgabenordnung, you are allowed to spend money if you are a shareholder not to be diluted. The other question is, where does the money come from? And this is, of course, not so easy because we as Fraunhofer are, I'm not sure if this is the same at the other organization, we are allowed to spend our basic funding we were receiving from the ministry in order to be a shareholder in a startup company. But we are allowed to spend our free money, our licensing income we have in the field of technology transfer in order to bring the whole technology transfer system working. And we have licensing income, and Fraunhofer has the positive effect that we are the inhabitor of all the MP3 patents, and we have a huge amount of licensing income, and so a small part of this money we spend in order to invest. And in the meanwhile, we are doing this 20 years, and I have shown you the company Arioso we have sold to Bosch last week. There we have been a shareholder from the beginning on, 25%. There was one financing round, we spent a little of money, but now we were receiving a little bit more. It was a positive exit for Fraunhofer, and now we give those money half back to the institute, half back to the board, and then we say, okay, if we come along in the next days with further investments, then there was an income out of this way to make technology transfer. And this is the reason why I have said, if you plan as a university or a research organization to have one shareholding and your goal is to reach the final enrichment out of this, then leave it. It must be an ecosystem, it must be a portfolio idea.
Thank you. Has it answered the question?
So you see on my answer, we have made many discussions on the whole legal framing, how we are allowed at the one side to support, the one other side to invest in startup companies.
My name is Lazar. I'm one of the directors of the Institutes of the Academy of Sciences, and we are just in the moment in this position that we are preparing a spin-off company. So my question is dealing with the motivation, exactly what you have mentioned in your last speech. My question is that the Fraunhofer Society has a model that includes an obligation to earn some amount of money from private sources. Let's say the spin-off companies might be based on the principle that you introduce a new kind of product on the market, but they also may be based on something that you actually do in-house in your institute and you spin it out. So in this moment, you actually lose this income that is generated by the activity that you are doing in-house in the moment when you spin it out into a company. So my question is, how do you motivate the director of the institute to do this? I think it's quite a crucial question, and in our environment we are not obliged to earn this amount of money from the institutional basis or on the institutional level, but this obligation exists as well on the project level. So this might be maybe a question for the discussion, but in general the key question is, how do you motivate the institutes to really do the spin-off activities?
It's a very interesting question, and a question which is part of many discussions I have had in the last years and following on. At the one side, if you see it from a real legal perspective, then we are a non-for-profit research organization, and we are not allowed to produce any products and sell them at the market. This is the theoretical answer. The practical answer is that our institutes like to produce small amounts of products and sell them, because this is revenue in order to make to reach their goal of products with the industry. So from a legal argumentation, if I go to the institutes or some colleagues and say, okay, you're the head of the director of the Fraunhofer Institute XYZ, and you are producing goods and selling them at the market, you are not allowed to, then the one who is making and the decisions which is the right way for technology transfer and who is responsible for the balance sheet of the single institute is the director, and they say, okay, but I need this money, otherwise I don't reach my goals. This is the discussion we have all the day. What we and what's worse is that Fraunhofer is dividing the basic funding we were receiving from the government not in 76 pieces, and then we say, okay, each company, each institute is receiving a part of this basic funding. We have combined, and that's the Fraunhofer model, we have combined this distribution of the money to the industry income. So if a institute have 1 million contract with an industry partner, then they get additional 350,000 euro from the headquarter for doing own research work. So if we spinning out a technology and this number is going down, then they additionally have less money for free research. And this was the reason why we have established our spin-off incentive program, that we say, okay, if you make a spin-off, then we believe, and we are not going in details if it's really happening, we believe that your volume of industry project is going down. We also believe that best scientists are leaving, and we also believe that you have additional work to do at the institute to support the spin-off, to work together with Fraunhofer Venture, and these are the three criteria, and therefore you get additional money. And therefore, if all the criteria are fulfilled, then they get around about 500,000 euro out of an internal program. And if the startups is happening, and to compare, to get those round about roughly 500,000 euro, if you have, as from an institute perspective, spun out a company, you have to negotiate an industry contract with a partner in the volume of 1.5 million euro. And industry projects in those volume are not happening so often at Fraunhofer. So this is the motivation that the one or the other director of the institute say, okay, if I get this lump sum, then I'm willing to support this startup idea. But this is a very strong argument, and our board of directors, or Professor Neugebauer, says to me, this is the only way how you can convince directors of institutes. It's not the innovation, it's not the motivation, it's not a spin-off at all, it's the money.
Thank you. It's actually a follow-up question on Professor Lazar. Michal Šmarans from Institute of Molecular Genetics. What you actually now said, explaining the approach towards the support, means that the lump sum is not that supportive, that it's somewhat the replacement of the future potential left. Do you have any analysis of whether these, before you mentioned that there is a brain drain, but at the same side you said it's brain drain, but it's a technology transfer through minds. So it's like both sides of the coin. So do you have any analysis of how many of these people come back, the best researchers, and do they have any incentive if the spin-off fails to work, if the business plan maybe is not? Right now we have a very disruptive situation in the market, so is there some incentive for them to come back? You said money is also missing at the institute, so...
The question is how many guys are leaving Fraunhofer, spinning out a company and coming back? Yeah. I have no detailed analysis, but I can say you are none. If they're once outside, they don't come back. What's maybe important is that the most companies we were spinning out, and the ratio is more than 90%, are existing after 5 years. And I don't know what's the basic reason is for this. I always like to say, because that's the perfect preparation we are doing at Fraunhofer Venture together with our guys. I think there are two issues. At the one side, we have a very detailed and a very problem-focused preparation program, our head program, what we as Fraunhofer Venture are doing, the support of the institutes. This is the one side of the coin. At the other side of the coin is, of course, Fraunhofer has a very strong brand. And Fraunhofer Venture is very well known in the venture capital scene in Germany. And if venture capitalists see this is a spin-off out of Fraunhofer, IP-based, all the stuff, how the access to the IP is, how the business model was elaborated, how the program to ramp up the startup company, all the necessary things have been done, and then Fraunhofer is investing, or Fraunhofer is bringing such spin-offs to external partners and say, okay, we have a look at it, because that is quality. And then the motivation to finance in Fraunhofer spin-off is very, very high. But we also have startup companies where there is no need for external investment at all. And as I've said, maybe I know one guy who was leaving Fraunhofer, going to a startup company, and then he was coming back after 1 year. But the startup was still existing. He always said, I have made the conclusion for me, entrepreneurship, being the CFO or the CTO of a startup company, that's not my career. I'm a researcher and I want to do research work, and this was the reason why he was coming back. All the others were outside, or stay outside. And even if a startup fail, they have alternatives and don't come back, because that's more or less the limited contract policy of Fraunhofer. The most researchers at Fraunhofer, they have limited contracts. They stay at Fraunhofer 3 years, 5 years, make their PhD, and then they are leaving. Okay. This is why we were promoting spinning out companies as an option in their career.
Okay. Young people usually.
Yes, the most startup founders are young guys. They coming from the university, working 3-5 years at the Fraunhofer Institute, and then they were spinning out their company.
I suggest we take a break. I think we need it. We will continue in 15 minutes, is my intention. So about 11:15, 11:15. Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed the discussion until now. So looking forward to the next. Thank you.